the Bureau for Blind Persons, Michigan, the state of Michigan Bureau for Blind Persons, who also is helping us support today, and our local Lions clubs in the Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County area support this library with some funding that's dedicated to this service and what we try to do here. Some of the people here today are people I've known for a long time who work at the state, for the Bureau for Blind Persons and for the state library, and I appreciate their expertise and their knowledge and their commitment to this service and its support of the library in Ann Arbor that's worked so hard for almost 10 years now to provide service to county residents through our services here. It's always an interesting day because of how much we learn about how we can get around, who has trouble getting around, how they cope with getting around. And getting around, sorry, is a southernism for getting around. So I'm going to use my language. And I use a cane and have since I was 30 years old because I have peripheral neuropathy in my hands and feet. And in the last decade, I've developed macular degeneration. So I'm one of those persons who is on both sides of this conversation. And it's been such a revelation to me over the years and so heartwarming to see so many of you who've dealt with issues far greater than mine for much longer in such a positive way, and that you're still here today learning new ways about getting around and staying active. So thank you to all the people in the room who provide services and to all the people here today who consume them, who feed back to us about what works and what doesn't, so that we can do it better. It's a privilege. So I'm really grateful to have you all here. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. And so now I'm going to introduce Katie Munkovich, who's the staff of the person of the library, who's responsible for pulling this off in such an amazing way. So please applaud Katie.
Thanks, Josie. Thanks, everybody. I'm just really happy that you all can make it here today. It's so great to see everybody, and we'll get started right away with our presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Shannon McVoy, who's the Statewide Transition Services Manager of the Michigan Bureau Services for Blind Persons. Thanks, Shannon.
Well, hello. Thank you all so much for coming down. I know there was a lot of great vendors up there to take advantage of checking out all of the cool new technology. I'm going to be co-presenting with Jacqueline Tallis, and she is our Statewide Transition Services Specialist and has been helping us with a lot of our programs. So the Bureau of Services for Blind Persons, as probably you know, we do have our library extension, and we also have offices throughout the state to work with individuals and in both career exploration and vocational rehabilitation, as well as our independent older blind program. How many of you in the room have worked with BSBP in the past? Raise your hand or clap or something, and I'll know. Yes? So about half of you, it sounds like, or looks like. So my role is in the area of transition services, and so I'm just going to speak a little bit about that to kind of set the stage for you about what it is that we do with our youth and our students. So transition is the process for students and their families to make plans for life after they leave the education system and high school. And so we're looking at post-school activities, including post-secondary education, vocational training, and competitive integrated employment, which could include, for some of our clients, what we consider supported employment. So some of those students might need a little bit more assistance when they're working. We also look at transitioning and, what is the student's adult life going to look like? What services might they need to help them to be successful? And what type of living environment are they going to live in, as well as how are they going to participate in their communities. And so basically it's moving the students from education to services with vocational rehabilitation. we're helping them to identify a vocational goal. So what kind of job do they want to have? And also which services and supports will they need to become successful in their chosen goal. Oops, I went the wrong way. So the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act is the federal act that guides our services. And so in the 2014 amendments, basically, they introduced this new category, which they call pre-employment transition services. And so for students to be eligible for these particular services, they have to be a student between the ages of 14 and 26. Michigan is the only state in the country that serves students until they're 26 years old. Most states are cutting education services off at about 21. And they have to have a visual impairment for services with BSBP. And they have to be currently enrolled in either a secondary or post-secondary education setting. So the 5 categories of pre-employment transition services are job exploration and counseling, work-based learning, which would be things like having a work experience or volunteering, post-secondary education exploration, so looking at what types of training and education might they be interested in to help to support their vocational goal. And then we also do a lot of workplace readiness training. And that's anything from independent living skills training, orientation and mobility, adaptive computer skills, any kind of technology that they're going to need to be successful. And then the last category is self-advocacy training. And that one is really important. It's kind of the foundation of everything that a student is doing, because they're learning to speak up for themselves, ask for the accommodations that they need, and really figure out how to do that independently. Because a lot of us who have children now, I have 2 20-year-olds. I'm going to date myself, but you know, it takes a while for them to start to be able to be comfortable doing a lot of those things on their own. So we're trying to provide them some training to help make it a smoother process and a smoother transition. So technology is what this conference is all about. So that's pretty much what my presentation is going to focus on, and how we're including technology really throughout the whole process of transitioning students from school to employment or post-secondary education. Students really need to learn about what emerging careers are out there so that they can be competitive when it comes to the job market. And, you know, students really benefit from the utilization of technology in post-secondary education and employment. You know, things for people with visual impairments have evolved so amazingly. I remember when I first started working in this career, I didn't even know how to attach anything to an email to send it somewhere, right? So, and it's really helped to level the playing field for people who are blind and visually impaired so that they actually can go out and be competitively employed. It's made huge advances in the different types of jobs that people can do because of the use of technology. So some of the emerging careers, I'm going to just highlight a few of them. These are the top 20, and they're teeny tiny, and probably none of us can see them. But really a lot of them focus around renewable energy. So the top 2 growing fields are solar installers and then wind turbine service technicians. So a lot of careers are evolving around the renewable energy field, and a lot of them are in the healthcare industry. So, and then of course, computers, application development, software development, things of that nature, that's constantly changing, and people are getting a lot of jobs in that area. So the next slide is the Career Index Plus. And the Career Index Plus is a career information system that collects labor market information from a host of different websites throughout the web. And it is depositing it into a single, user-friendly, and accessible site that students and actually anybody who's looking at employment can go to find out more information. This is a free resource, and if anybody is interested in getting the website, I can give that to you after the presentation. They keep the data is constantly updated, and so it's the most current information out there. And it was built from the ground up with vocational rehabilitation in mind. So what we're looking to do is make sure that our students are using different resources and tools to find jobs that will be something that they can, go out and be independent. We want to make sure that our students are looking at jobs that are going to be available when they get done with college. Sometimes when you're looking at jobs at 14, they evolve to such a point when you're actually ready to become employed that particular job might not be as in demand. So we're having our students do a lot of research and make sure that they're really exploring what types of careers they can actually go out and get jobs with when they're done with school. It's got a lot of components in it. Thank you for that question. So some of the key things that it will do is to conduct a basic job search. So students are able to quickly find information about different occupations, including current job openings, salary expectations, training requirements, and different things like that, so they can explore different careers. There's also a way that a student can set up a user profile. And actually, I say student because that's who I work with, but anybody can access this site. But they can set up a profile so they can save their favorite jobs in there. The great thing for us as vocational rehab is that our counselors are actually able to sign students up under them and then monitor their progress as far as what types of things have they been searching for, what jobs have they looked at, and help, and then they can work with them in a counseling environment to talk about pros and cons and different things, and if it's a real good fit for that student. There's job postings up there. It links in with Indeed and the National Labor Exchange market. And then it also allows them to explore local openings and careers and opportunities there. And then it also has a lot of resources. So when the student is done in there, they can go out and find all different types of resources. So this is a new tool that was recently developed, and we have been trying to use it with both students and our adult vocational rehab consumers. So now the fun stuff. So what this Pre-Employment Transition Services has done for us as BSBP is it's really allowed us to put together a lot of different programs and opportunities for our students that they hadn't had in the past. So when I first started as a counselor with the agency, we would open students at 14 in a vocational rehab plan, and then we would try to figure out what they say they would like to do, but we weren't able to provide a lot of services until they were closer to exiting high school. But this allows us to do a lot of things with younger students. One of the things that we were able to do last summer is to develop an astronomy and STEM camp. And a couple of the pre-ETS categories it focuses on is really job exploration and the work-based learning. And what we did here was we were able to utilize 3D printing technology to expose our students or introduce our students to different concepts in the astronomy field. And I'm going to bring Jacqueline up here, and she's going to talk a little bit more about what we did. But some of the concepts that we covered in this program were tactile models to explain gravity. And we had NASA Braille materials that they've developed. I think probably the library has some of those as well. Looking at the solar system and planispheres, which I'm going to let Jackie talk about that because she's good at that. 3D prints of galaxies and solar systems, because a lot of our students, there's pictures in books, and if they can't see what's in those pictures, some of those concepts are really challenging to explain to somebody. So these models allow them to actually feel the different solar systems and the galaxy, and it was pretty fun to watch. We had, I think, 15 students participate in that program, and it was really fun to watch them explore these different models and kind of really grasp concepts in a way that they hadn't been able to do before. And also, we touched on data sonification. We did a lot of different activities. We had some speakers. We had an astrophysicist come from San Jose State. We had a gal that works on the Hubble Space Telescope come, and we were also able to bring in some guest speakers. And I'm going to let Jacqueline talk about that. So the mic is right here.
Okay. All right. As Shannon said, this was an amazing opportunity for our students to interact with professionals in the various STEM fields, but also to learn about how these different subjects can be accessible to them, since historically a lot of students who are blind and visually impaired don't think that they can really exceed expectations in math, or they can be successful in these really theoretical scientific fields. So we did use a lot of 3D printing technology to show them what these ginormous objects in space could look like or feel like, as it were, for these 3D printed models. We took an excursion to a local 3D printing company in Kalamazoo called Express Printing Solutions. And so we got to touch on careers related to 3D printing and see what a work environment is like with that technology. The students got to touch a 3D printer and discover what the different parts of that equipment do. So a lot of them maybe had heard a little bit of information about what a 3D printer is, but they didn't really understand what it does and how it operates, and hadn't actually seen one operating and been able to touch it. So that was a really amazing opportunity for them. We got to talk to the gentlemen who operate that business and learn what they do for their job. And we also got to kind of explore what their office is like and hear about the different applications for that technology, rather than just the educational environment that we were using it for. So they use it for rapid prototyping a lot of times for different companies that are looking to produce a product, potentially like an automaker, for example, and they need to design a part prior to creating thousands and thousands of them. So that was a really great opportunity for them to explore that business and that emerging technology that is becoming so big in numerous job fields, not just one or two. In addition, we took the students to the Kalamazoo Valley Museum, which has a planetarium, and they got to put their knowledge that they learned in our program to the test. So they were learning about different galaxies and what am I thinking of? The different signs of the zodiac and the different bodies in space and the stories behind them. And then when we went to the planetarium, they were able to see how technology is used to demonstrate that to the public. And they could compare then the high tech and the low tech. The gentleman who was assisting us with our program to develop the tactile materials in books for NASA and different entities also had developed these planispheres, and they were like these tabletop models of the sky that you can move the different bodies around and kind of show what the night sky would look like at different times of the year. And that way the students could feel with the Braille where different bodies in space would be, say, in January versus in June. And then that's what they actually show on the screen when you go to the planetarium, except they're running it with probably an iPad or some other kind of tablet. So the students were talking to this operator of the planetarium and learning what he does and how he applies his knowledge to educating the public, but then they also were able to have these Braille labeled planispheres in their lap and follow along. And I feel like I'm like a parent, I'm a teacher with these students, but I brag on their abilities. Some of them were so advanced in understanding this material that they were actually dialing in the changes on their planispheres in their lap faster than the planetarium operator could keep up with them on the tablet. He kept going, slow down, this is too fast. And they're throwing out where Orion would be in the sky. So I was very proud of how they were able to grasp that material and run with it. And hopefully they will be enthusiastic enough to apply that to their future education and work. We also took them to the Air Zoo in Kalamazoo, which is an aeronautics and space museum. And it showed them a lot of different aviation equipment, from airplanes to different, pieces of technology that were developed through history since the airplane was first invented, that we have used to in war, to develop different inventions that we've used here on Earth afterward, like the artificial heart is one of them, different inventions that were first used for the space program that we've now used for other fields as well. And so they were able to see how technology is first used for discovery and then applied in multiple other areas, including the medical field, to benefit everyone, not just those that are interested in finding out what's beyond Earth and the moon. So it was really fantastic, and the students surprise us every time at how interested and curious they are. We had a couple guest speakers who were unable to actually attend this program, and they Skyped in, which was fantastic that they made the time to do that. One of them was an engineer and patent lawyer who works for NASA, who is completely blind, and he was able to share with the students his experience in how he got his education and then how he started working for such a prestigious agency as NASA that everybody knows about. And that was really encouraging because they were able to ask him questions like, well, how do you study math in such an advanced capacity? And what technology helps you to do that and be competitive? Another person that they talked to was Dr. Wanda Diaz-Merced, who was, I think, an astronomer who was going blind while obtaining her PhD. And rather than letting that suspend her career, she really took technology and ran with it. And so she was able to study different bodies in space, where most people do it visually. They'll look at images and then graphic representations of data. She took it and she called it data sonification. So she would listen to the data rather than look at it. And she demonstrated for the students what that sounds like so they could also hear the data from space. And that was really fascinating as well, and allowed the students to see how people are able to be creative in applying technology to their education and career.
Thank you. So out of that program, kind of grew this idea. I don't know how they happen, but they do. We were exploring the express printings business, and they mentioned that there was a kit for about $200 on Amazon where you could build your own 3D printer. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. We have to do that with our students. So we worked with Express Printing again to put together a weekend program, and we brought in students from across the state, and they were actually able to build their own 3D printing. Again, you know, we're looking at what jobs are and careers are emerging, and there's so many uses of 3D printing now. It's crazy. They're using it in the orthodontist office, as Jacqueline mentioned earlier. The auto industry has really benefited from it because they're able to rapidly prototype parts that they would have had to, would have taken weeks in the past, and they can do it in a couple of days now, where they just need to maybe make a slight change. So we had our students come to our training center in Kalamazoo. We brought in some professionals again to talk about different employment opportunities, because we always want to tie in that employment piece so that they can be thinking about, hey, what kind of job would I like to do when I leave, and what things am I going to be able to do with the technology that's out there. The focus was really also on how can you, student, go back after you build your own 3D printer, because which kid doesn't want their own 3D printer, right? They're very amazing. We've made all kinds of cool things, tactile dice, different little models. At our training center, they just got done making a giant chess set so that we can play chess in our courtyard in the summer. But looking at really how can they then take their printer home and use it either in their high school, or if they're in college, they could maybe use it to explore, like we did with the astronomy. There's so many things you can download to those 3D printers and then build. So if they're not grasping a concept, one thing comes to mind in that we had a student who was in the health and science field, and they have to look at all the different parts of the body, and so they were able to make some 3D models of different parts. You can make all kinds of amazing things. So they learned basically, first they built the machine, which took about a day, right? Day to put it together. And then they had to learn, obviously, how to use it. So we taught them how to load the filament and how to set the, oh goodness, what's that thing called? The XY, the bed, sorry. And they learned how to then, take a file, because they have to be coded a certain way for them to actually print into a 3D model. So they learned how to do all of that. And we again talked about employment opportunities. Do you want to add anything about that weekend?
Sure. It was a really eye-opening experience for us. First, I was the guinea pig. For those of you who don't know, I am blind, and so when we started talking about this idea of having students build a 3D printer, the question was, can it be done without vision? And all of us who know about blindness and our capabilities, we say, of course it can, but then how is the question? So I was the guinea pig, and I built a 3D printer, and it took about 3 hours. I was very proud. I'm not mechanically inclined. So I had help, but then we learned with our students that you need to be familiar with these concepts, even if that's not what you're going to do for the majority of your life. You need to know what an Allen wrench is. You need to know what nuts and bolts are and how they work. You need to know what a Phillips versus a flathead screwdriver is. And when we started working with our students, we found they didn't know what these tools were. And so a little basic education for home maintenance that will kick in later on, hopefully. But it was fantastic to build these with them, and then to talk about mechanical information about how these printers work, because they're going to have to maintain them and operate them to get their 3D model that they can use to learn something or to complete an activity. That was really great. Is there anything else we're thinking about? No?
But yeah, that was fun. A lot of fun weekend. The students worked really hard to put those together, so it was cool to see them all completed, and then they each got to make something with it while they were at the training center. The next program I'm going to talk about is the 21st Century Transportation Conference, and we actually held that here in Ann Arbor. We partnered with the University of Michigan, and the NFB of Michigan also was one of our partners in this project. We wanted to have an opportunity for students to explore the autonomous vehicles, because that is a huge emerging technology that's out there, and it's fascinating to think about a self-driving car. And are people from Ann Arbor here that have gotten, I heard there's a pizza delivery that will bring it autonomously. Yes, no? Domino's, I think, will deliver in a self-driving car. That's what somebody just told me last week, and I was like, oh my goodness, we're going to have to get pizza, because we're going to be doing this program again this summer, and how cool is that they can bring me a pizza. So this program, we were exploring careers again, and looking at self-advocacy and also looking at technology. Did you have a question? Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Not right now. They can't. Just in case. So safety first, right? So, we were focusing on the emerging technologies that are used to develop these autonomous vehicles, and also exploring different careers. So we were able to visit campus as well. Some of the program objectives were really to give the students an overview of the auto industry and where it's at and where our autonomous vehicles are. We did a lot of hands-on activities for the students. We explored the emerging careers, exposed them to blind professionals that are working in the auto industry. I think that's always really important, that we're making sure our students are hearing directly from individuals who are blind and visually impaired who are working in a particular field, because then they say, oh, yeah, I guess it could be done, because maybe they didn't think about working in the auto industry because they were blind or visually impaired. But when they hear of a success story, and several of them, we had some fabulous speakers to come in and help us with this program, but really to get an idea of what is feasible for them, and maybe explore some careers that they hadn't thought about before. The other thing that we did that was really fun was we had a networking opportunity. We partnered with M-City, which if you're from here, you probably know is the testing ground for these autonomous vehicles. It's like a whole little city set up, a little mock city, and they have their shuttle. The U of M has a shuttle that's autonomous, and so we were able to ride on that around the M-City property, which was pretty fun. What I didn't realize, probably nobody does, because who would think of this? Their backup controller is an Xbox controller. So, it was pretty fun to see that. We didn't have to use it because it did, make its route and did what it was supposed to. But when the driver has to take over, they actually use an Xbox controller to control it, which was pretty fun. But the students were able to have a networking opportunity. They have what they call the M-City, I think the ambassadors, or what are they called? The M-City Congress. And so these are leaders in different parts of the technology. So anything from the signs that will speak to the car so it knows to stop, and then all the different parts manufacturers. The students were able to have a networking lunch with these professionals and ask them all kinds of questions. And the professionals were able to ask our students too. That was one of the things that I didn't think about when we were developing this program, but they asked a lot of amazing questions about, what happens if somebody has a medical emergency when they're in one of these cars and there's no driver? How does that work? And so they asked a lot of really amazing questions because, of course, our students are thinking, hopefully in their lifetime, that they will be able to have one of these vehicles. Although the folks we talked to basically said people will not own these cars, that they will be more like an Uber or a Lyft, where when you need a car to go wherever you're going, you'll just call it and it'll pick you up. That the technology will be so expensive that you won't be able to probably afford to buy your own, but people won't need them because there'll be so many that'll be traveling around to pick up people that we won't need cars. I'm not very happy because I am a Mustang fan. So, a few of the speakers that we had Mark Riccobono, who's the NFB president. He came and spoke to us. We also had Lindsay Teal, who is a policy advisor for the Office of Disability Employment Policy. Paul, I'm not saying his last name, Hemmersbaugh, who is the chief counsel and policy director at GM. We also had Derek Hilbert, who is local out of the Detroit area, and he is in talent acquisition specifically for people with disabilities to be hired into GM. So he had a lot of great information to share with our students about hiring practices and interviewing and all of those wonderful things. Jack Bernard, who, if you stick around long enough, you will hear him later this afternoon. He spoke to our students. He's general counsel with the University of Michigan, and he talked a lot more about the policy and the legal implications of these self-driving vehicles. And then Tyler Marin, who was my personal favorite. I can't say that, right? Also used to be one of my clients when I was a counselor. And he's a 3-time Para-Olympian. He does goalball. And he was able to come up and just talk to students about striving for your dreams and what that looks like and how you move past your disability to basically do what you'd like to do with your life. So you want to talk about some of the activities or anything? Yeah.
So a lot of the opportunities we had the students participate in were also sort of happy serendipitous occurrences as part of the program. Shannon mentioned that networking lunch where the students were interacting with professionals in various capacities related to this technology. And what I really noticed as a teacher was we talked to students about how it's important to be poised and have good social skills and to be able to navigate the environment when you are dining in a networking setting. And what they kind of listen to us like we're that teacher. They don't hear what we're saying all the time. They kind of tune it out. Yeah, sure, Mom. But when push came to shove and they were waiting for these professionals to enter the room, it got serious really quick. And so they were making sure that they had all the information they thought they'd need in order to be taken seriously by these people. And they were asking, okay, where's the salad? Where's the bread? Which fork do I use first? And where does my napkin go? And how do I, speak professionally to these people when I'm 16 years old? And are they actually going to listen to me? So that was really exciting. We also had an activity where they were working on some interview skills and some of those skills of kind of flying off the cuff and improvising when they're talking with people and not anticipating the questions and answers they might encounter. We also had activities where we visited the 3D printing lab on campus because 3D printing is everywhere. We are talking about it in all of our programs. And the University of Michigan uses it in their different educational programs. They, funnily enough, had a 3D printing club that built the very same printers that our students built for our 3D printing program. And our students built them faster. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, they were quite surprised. It only took them a day to build them. Yes, I was impressed. And so we talked about how the printers are used in various capacities in education for developing projects for engineering and numerous things, but they also showed prototypes of various different materials that they've used for automotive development and for various other people that come to the University of Michigan for their technology. That was very fascinating.
Yes, and I very sadly neglected to mention that MPVI was also a huge partner with us, and I'm sitting looking at Jessica and Amy, and I'm like, how did I forget them? They're sitting right in front of me, but they helped us out a lot with developing the program, getting some of the speakers, and so it was really a team effort, which is another thing that's been really great about our new programs is we're able to partner with a lot more people and just expose our students to many different things that they would never encounter, and honestly, most students wouldn't encounter. How many students without any type of impairment get to go to University of Michigan and check out their 3D printing lab and hear from national speakers on such a really cool emerging technology. On our table upstairs, we do have flyers for all of the upcoming programs. We will be repeating this program in August this summer. So that was a little bit better for the university for us to be able to really utilize their lab a little bit more than we were able to do last summer. So that is that program, and that's it. So do we have questions? Good question. 3? Scott says 3. You're welcome. Any other questions of how we're using technology with students? That's just kind of a variety of things. We're using it all in all other kind of ways as well throughout most of the programs. You really can't get away from technology, and so we want to make sure that our students have as much exposure as they can. And obviously they're getting that in the education system as well because they're learning a lot of these things from their teacher consultants for the visually impaired. But we want to make sure that they have the skills that they're going to need to be competitive when they do graduate or when they do go on to post-secondary education. So we're really focusing on a lot of that. Question in the back? The one I talked about earlier is the Career Index Plus. And if you Google that, you will find it. It's called Career Index Plus, and it's careerindex.com is the website. And that'll take you there. And again, you have to sign up as a user to be able to access it, but it is a free site, and it pulls together just so much information. Yes, and no, it's built for anybody. It did have people with disabilities in mind and vocational rehab specifically. It was funded through the Rehabilitation Services Administration, but it's available for anybody to use. No, not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. We have not done much with the medical field, but probably that will be one thing that we're going to look at next. We haven't been doing these programs for very long, and so we're constantly developing them. I don't know, Gwen's in the back. Do you guys partner at all with any of the hospitals locally? Okay. So could you hear her? So basically there's a program called Project Search in the state, and some of those are based out of hospitals, and that's for students with all types of disabilities, where basically they spend a year doing 3 different rotations at an entity. So I think is Beaumont Hospital is a site, and there's a couple, and Bronson and Kalamazoo is a site. So if students express an interest in that, they get education for half of the day, and then they work in different departments around the hospital for the other half of the day. And then we're always looking individually at students. If a student expresses an interest in working in the medical field, we would set up maybe a job shadow where they'd go in and or an informational interview so they can go ask questions, and then possibly some type of a work experience where they would actually work in that field. There's a gentleman in the back, kind of mid-back, that had a question, maybe? No? You? Yes? Yes? No? The technology is still being developed. They're not fully autonomous at this point. Where are we at? 3? There's like 5 levels of autonomous vehicles, and I think a lot of the technology parts of it are being used. There's different vehicles that will, steer you back if you start going off your lane. They'll self-correct and steer you. The backup cameras that a lot of cars that have now. And they'll beep when you're getting too close to something. So some of the components of the autonomous vehicles are currently being implemented in today's vehicles, but not a full. There are some out there, but not for sale. Yeah. Oh, Jacqueline's gonna add something.
All right, so some people might have heard too, and we're not experts in the field by any means, but what we've learned in putting on these programs and also listening to these speakers is there are currently some fleets of cars that are being rolled out as a rideshare service, like part of Uber or Lyft. There's one in Phoenix, Arizona, for example, using some Chrysler Pacificas. But the technology is being monitored very closely. It's being used as a beta project. As was mentioned earlier, there always has to be a person in the car, even if they're not doing anything. They're there in the event of an emergency. But we also learned from talking to people in the industry is that these vehicles are being rolled out in areas where the climate is very mild. We've heard that the Michigan and the northern part of the country in particular is going to be a very tough nut to crack because of the snow and the leaves, because it covers things like the lines in the roads, the signs, the sensors on the vehicle. And so if you live in an area like here where conditions are going to be snowy and icy for a lot of the time, that is an environment they haven't figured out how to circumvent those conditions yet, and that's why the vehicles aren't here.
You have a question? Okay. Oh, right. Oh, yes. Yeah, right. Okay. So it'll decrease its acceleration if you're getting too close, and it'll stop suddenly. That shuttle that we rode on at M City, they said it would stop for a squirrel, which was pretty crazy. We didn't get any squirrels, but did you have a question in the front?
One more question, I think.
Okay.
What do you suggest for the person that's over 26 years of age and is interested in learning more? Is it the website?
You can look on the website to explore different careers, but if anybody is over 26, we do have our full vocational rehabilitation program where we work individually with anybody who is interested in employment to help them identify a career goal. We have vocational counselors throughout the state that would work with them and do some exploring and figure out what steps they need.
What is that website, please?
Oh, our BSBP website is www.michigan.gov/BSBP. So that's our website, and we post all the information about our older blind independent living program, also the transition services that we offer, as well as vocational rehabilitation, our youth low vision program, and of course our wonderful library. So thank you all so much for your time.